Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's case took place in Columbia, Illinois on May 5, 2009. Although this incident occurred earlier, it is often compared to the highly publicized case of Chris Watts. I invite you to listen to the details of this story. In 2008, the Coleman family lived in a house in Columbia, Illinois, a small town in Monroe County, located about 25 minutes south of St. Louis, Missouri. Their residence was in an upper-middle-class neighborhood, known for its tranquility. Chris and Sherry had two wonderful sons, Garrett, age 11, and Gavin, age 9. People around them agreed that Chris was a great father. Although he worked a lot, he tried to spend all his free time with his children. They played together, laughed constantly, and joked around. Chris Coleman was born on March 20th, 1977, while Sherry Coleman, née Weiss, was born on December 6th, 1977. Chris was married to Sherry Coleman. The duo met in May 1997 at a K-9 training seminar at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. Chris and Sherry dated for a few months before getting married. Their marriage was full of ups and downs as they disagreed on many things. His parents, especially his father, Ron, a pastor, reportedly disapproved of Sherry from the start. They felt she did not share the family's strict religious values and even suspected she might have trapped Chris in the relationship. This perception led to a long-standing tension as his parents believed Sherry's lifestyle and personality were incompatible with their values, causing a persistent strain on their relationship with her. The Colemans lived in a beautiful home in the most desirable part of town, and according to friends and family, they were simply the perfect family. The couple led a comfortable life, as Chris, a former Marine, had secured an excellent-paying job as head of security for the well-known televangelist Joyce Meyer, the founder and leader of a Christian ministry rooted in Protestantism. Thanks to her television and radio programs and several best-selling books, Joyce Meyer was among the wealthiest pastors in the United States. However, Meyer was also a highly controversial figure. She had many detractors, as well as loyal supporters, some of whom posed potential risks to her safety. Every day she received hateful emails, with some senders going so far as to make direct death threats. As the head of security, it was also Chris's responsibility to monitor this correspondence. Chris's job came with significant duties, but one of the most challenging aspects was Joyce's constant travel schedule. As she toured the country to meet with her followers, Chris had to accompany her, sometimes being away from home for weeks at a time. Though his impressive salary, over $100,000 a year, helped compensate for these inconveniences, Chris's frequent absences were a source of great stress for his family. Sherry and the children missed him deeply. The boys marked the days of his absence on the calendar, counting down to his return. These constant trips also led to marital strain. Sherry felt not only lonely, but overwhelmed by household responsibilities. In October 2008, Chris had to travel to Tampa, Florida. Sherry, who had attended high school in Florida, took the opportunity to reach out to her old friend, Tara, who still lived in Tampa, and asked if she would like to meet Chris. Chris met Tara Lintz, who also had connections with Joyce Meyer's ministries, where Chris worked as head of security. Their initial contact became more personal during Chris's work-related visit to Florida in 2008. Although Tara was a close friend of Sherry Coleman, the relationship between her and Chris eventually turned into an affair, with the two communicating frequently through texts and calls. Chris confided in her about the loneliness he often felt during his separations from Sherry and the boys. Fortunately, after this lengthy trip, Chris would not need to travel again for several weeks, so he was eager to enjoy as much time as he could with his family at home. However, it soon became clear that his time with his family would be far from peaceful. On Friday, November 14th, 2008, late in the evening, a disturbing message appeared in his work inbox from a sender with the ominous handle, "Destroy Chris." The message read, Maya needs to stop putting out those worthless sermons, or the Coleman family will die. I will kill his wife and children. The next day, Chris received several more emails with similar threats. The sender was the same Destroy Chris, who seemed to know a lot about Chris's travel schedule and was aware that he was about to leave for another trip with Maya. The writer hinted that they might target the Coleman family during Chris's absence. With considerable hesitation, Chris finally decided to inform Sherry about the threats he was receiving. Sherry was terrified. A few days later, Chris reported the threats to the police. Officers questioned him about whether anyone in Joyce Meyer's circle had ever received similar threats. Chris stated that, as far as he knew, nothing like this had happened before. After reviewing all the information, the police openly stated that there was little they could do for the time being. So, Chris requested that they increase patrols in the area, especially while he was away. The additional patrols were visible, yet Sherry remained extremely anxious. She often asked her friend to stay overnight and repeatedly criticized Chris, accusing him of putting his job before his family's safety. About 2 months passed. One day, Chris collected the mail from the box in front of their house and found a suspicious envelope. No return address, no postage. His instincts were correct. The letter warned that the final hour was approaching for him and his family, threatening they would all die in their sleep. This escalation was more serious, as it proved the anonymous sender knew Chris's home address and wasn't afraid to come close. Soon, more letters arrived, containing messages like, "We're watching you through your windows." In response, Chris and Sherry decided to install cameras around their home, hoping to catch whoever was leaving the letters. The footage was recorded and stored on a home computer. Strangely, as soon as the system was installed, the letters stopped coming. The Coleman family gradually regained a sense of peace. It's reasonable to assume that this newfound calm also improved their marriage. By spring 2009, according to emails Sherry wrote to a friend in April, the couple's relationship had significantly improved. The situation changed completely on April 27th, when Chris once again pulled an unmarked envelope from the mailbox. Opening it, he braced himself, anticipating that the letter's contents would be anything but pleasant. And he was right. The opening line read, "Your worst nightmare will come true," with the rest of the letter adopting an even more aggressive tone than in the previous messages. Chris immediately ran into the house to review footage from the night of April 26th to 27th. Sure enough, the video showed a figure approaching the mailbox and dropping something inside, but only the dark outline of the person was visible, making identification impossible. The couple reported everything to the police, who intensified patrols in the area even further. One of the neighborhood residents, Justin, who happened to be a police sergeant and Chris's immediate neighbor, offered his support. Although Chris and Justin had no social interactions despite living close by, Justin reached out on his own initiative. He called Chris, assuring him that he was available if anything happened and that he could reach Chris's house faster than other officers. Justin also suggested installing a camera in his 3-year-old son's room, which would record the entrance to Chris's property and his mailbox. Chris gladly accepted the offer, and the camera was installed. A few days passed, and nothing happened. On Monday afternoon, May 4th, 11-year-old Garrett Coleman asked the mother of his friend Brandon, who lived 4 houses down, if he and his younger brother could spend the night. Garrett's birthday had been 4 days earlier, and Brandon's was the next day, so the boys wanted to celebrate with a sort of birthday sleepover. Vanessa, Brandon's mother, agreed immediately, saying, "Run home and tell your mum and dad to pack clothes and school things for tomorrow." Excited, Garrett ran home, but returned a few minutes later, looking disappointed. "My dad says we can't stay over tonight, and we have to be home by 8:30, he informed her. A bit surprised, but respecting the parents' decision, Vanessa promised Garrett that he and his brother could stay over the following Saturday instead. At exactly 8:30 p.m., as requested, Vanessa sent Garrett and Gavin home. The next morning, Tuesday, May 5th, at precisely 6:42 a.m., Justin, the Coleman family's neighbour and a police officer, was jolted awake by a loud phone ring. Groggy, having fallen asleep only 3 hours earlier after putting his 6-month-old to bed, Justin picked up the receiver. On the line was an anxious Chris Coleman. He explained that he had left for a workout about an hour ago, but had been trying unsuccessfully to reach his family at home. Initially, he wanted to make sure they hadn't overslept, but by now, he was deeply worried, as no one was answering or returning his messages. "Please, could you go check to make sure everything's okay? I'm on the Barrack Bridge, and I'll be there in 5 minutes, Chris pleaded. Justin sprang into action, grabbing his service weapon, radio and handcuffs. Before heading out, he called the station to request backup. As Justin approached the Coleman home, he genuinely expected that Sherry would answer the door, resolving the situation easily. However, that didn't happen. Justin knocked and rang the bell, but there was only silence. He tried peering inside through the windows, but the blinds blocked his view. The house was dark, with no lights on and no visible movement. Soon another officer, Jason, arrived at the scene. While Justin waited on the front porch, Jason went around to the back of the house to check if anyone was there. Moments later, Jason called Justin over the radio, informing him that there were signs of a break-in near a basement window. At that point, Justin was certain something was wrong. The officers called for backup and entered the house. As Justin and Jason entered the home, they immediately noticed that the security alarm cables had been disconnected. Climbing the stairs from the basement, they were hit by the overwhelming scent of spray paint. It soon became clear why. The walls in the hall were covered with large, red, spray-painted graffiti. The messages included violent and hostile language such as "This is your punishment" and "F you," indicating a personal and vengeful motive. Investigators noted that these messages echoed the threats received by the Coleman family in the months leading up to the incident, underscoring the disturbing and targeted nature of the crime. Around this time, Chris arrived at the house, just as the additional officers summoned by Justin pulled up. The officers requested that he stay outside. Chris, visibly shaken, complied without question. As they proceeded to the staircase, they noticed more spray-painted messages on the wall by the stairs leading up. These markings seemed as if they were meant to direct someone upstairs, guiding them along in a deliberate, unsettling manner. With the ground floor already searched, Justin, along with his colleagues, as backup had arrived in the meantime, continued to the upper floor. Justin went into the bedroom of 11-year-old Garrett. The scene inside the Coleman home was tragic. 11-year-old Garrett lay motionless on his bed, appearing as though he was sleeping. Justin checked for a pulse, but there were no signs of life. Garrett's body felt cold and rigid. Noticing a red mark around the boy's neck, it became evident he had been strangled. In the adjacent room, Officer Steve P. discovered Garrett's younger brother Gavin, also lifeless in his bed, bearing a similar strangulation mark on his neck. In the parents' bedroom, they found Sherry. She was naked, her body also cold and stiff like that of her children, and there were clear signs of a struggle on her body. As the officers processed this grim scene, they heard Chris calling out loudly, "What's going on?" Overwhelmed by the weight of the task ahead, they descended the stairs, knowing they had to inform the father that his wife and children were dead. Finding the right words was nearly impossible. "Chris, they didn't make it," one officer said gently. "They didn't make it." Chris broke down upon realizing the horrific truth. The officers escorted him outside, where he collapsed on the ground, curled up and sobbing. He pulled out his phone and called his father, saying, "Something terrible has happened to the boys and Sherry." As a crowd of onlookers gathered outside the Coleman home, police moved Chris to an ambulance to shield him from both the public and approaching reporters. Police tape was placed around the property to keep onlookers and press at bay. Vanessa, Brandon's mother, was taking her son and another neighborhood boy to school for Brandon's birthday, each carrying treats. She noticed the police presence and assumed the kids were delaying school, but her steps halted when she saw the Coleman home surrounded by yellow police tape. Chris was taken to the station, where detectives asked him to recount the previous evening and any unusual occurrences. Chris initially claimed his marriage was happy, despite a rough patch in 2008, and denied having an affair. However, he eventually mentioned his connection with Tara, a friend he met on a Florida business trip with Sherry's knowledge. Pressed further, Chris admitted they exchanged explicit messages, photos and videos, which Sherry likely wouldn't have approved of. Police then questioned Tara, who quickly disclosed that she and Chris had been romantically involved since November 2008. Around the same time, Chris began receiving threatening emails. Detectives found this suspicious. Chris ultimately admitted the affair, but claimed it had ended, suggesting Tara had pressured him to leave his family for her. The police soon considered Tara a potential suspect, investigating her whereabouts during the crime. Given the heinous nature of the murder of a mother and 2 young children, the case garnered national attention, prompting a task force of 25 officers who worked nearly around the clock. It didn't take long to verify Tara's alibi, as she had been in Florida. Investigators also examined the threatening emails Chris had allegedly received. Digital forensics quickly revealed a shocking twist. One sender, using the name Destroy Chris, had been sending threats from Chris Coleman's own IP address, implying he was the source. Further analysis matched Chris's handwriting to the red spray-painted messages at the crime scene, and the paint itself was traced back to a purchase Chris made in early 2009.
We've got, when you left the house this morning, was your wife alive?
Oh, yeah.
What would you say if I told you that I don't think she was?
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I think she was. I mean, she was.
Okay.
She was laying right beside me.
Right. And I'm not doubting that. I'm not doubting that you were there, and I'm not doubting that you care. But I am doubting that she was alive when you left this morning. Physically, what we have are different ways to tell how long a person's been deceased. That was done. And what do you think that showed?
I don't know. I guess the time frame when I was gone. I mean...
No, you guys wrong. Chris, we need to get this resolved, okay? That you can't argue with physical evidence.
Right. I'm not trying to argue with it.
All right.
I don't.
What I'm telling you is there is no other explanation. There's no other reason that the information we have would support what you're telling us. That it can't. It can't. You've told us a story and we've gone over it numerous times. Right. You know what? We walk out to Justin, maybe we missed this. Let's go in and talk to him about this and just make sure that we're not missing something. Let's give him every opportunity to tell us exactly what happened and maybe we're missing something. Right. So that's why we go out and we come back in and we go out and we come back in. Right. I did have to use the restroom, that was legitimate, but we go out and we come back in. And we felt very comfortable that we were giving you every opportunity to tell us something that was going to contradict the information that we had. Mm-hmm. All right, we've got this information, you're saying it, and we're giving you opportunity to give us something contrary to what you told us before, so that, okay, yeah, all right, that would make sense. That hasn't happened.
I'm just telling you
that
what
hasn't
happened.
Listen, man, she wasn't alive when you left.
She was alive. She was laying right beside me.
Listen to me. We can go back and forth with this all day long, but the physical evidence doesn't lie, man. She was not alive when you left this morning. The children weren't alive when we left this morning.
Yes, they were.
No, come on, Chris.
They
We gotta get over this. Now there's reasons, and that's the point we're at. I wanna hear the reasons. Now is when we need to find out what happened, man. It's so important. You're at a great point to be able to help us to try to figure this out. We already know what happened. We need to know why it happened.
I know what to tell you.
Listen, no, you do know what to tell us.
No, I don't.
Come on, Chris. She was not alive when you left. The children were not alive when you left. You know that's true, and I know that's true.
No, it just...
We need to clear this up now. We need to clear it up now. Did something happen? What happened?
Nothing happened.
What was going on in your life, Chris? Because I can't buy what you're saying. The physical evidence does not lie, Chris. It does not. She was not alive when you left, period. The physical evidence does not lie, man.
What do you want me to tell you?
The truth.
I'm telling you the truth.
How did we get to this point? That's what I need to know. I need to know how and why we got to the point we're at right now. We both know you're not telling me the truth. We both know that. I've done this a long time. I'm looking into your eyes, and I can tell you you're not being truthful, Chris. We need an answer. And there are answers. As bad as this sounds, as bad as this looks, or you may think it looks, we understand, and I've talked to many people who have given me reasons, and it's like, you know what, okay, all right, I can understand how somebody might have been feeling that at that time. And maybe they acted on it, and they shouldn't have, and they regret it. There's no way to turn clocks back. You can't turn clocks back. You understand that, don't you?
Right.
You can't turn the clock back. The only thing we can do is go forward from this point, and we need to know what and why it happened. Come on, Chris, help me out with this.
I'm telling you, I've already told you. I've told everybody. I told the guy in the ambulance. I told you. I told him.
The more we go back like this, the more it makes me think that there maybe even isn't a good explanation for it. I mean, we need to know what happened. We can't keep going on this. It didn't, she was alive when I left. We know that's not true, and there's nothing we can do about changing that. If we know she wasn't alive when you left this morning, there's got to be an explanation. Now is the time to tell us. Now is the time to get this out in the open.
I don't know what else to tell you.
Yes, you do. Yes,
No.
you do. You have to tell me the truth, Chris.
I'm telling you the truth.
Were you involved in her death?
No.
Okay. Was someone you know involved in her death?
I don't know.
Did you know? Did you talk to anybody about arranging her death?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. You're.
Autopsies revealed that Sherry, 31, Garrett, 11, and Gavin, 9, were killed around 3 a.m., while Chris was still at home. 2 weeks after the murders, Chris Coleman was arrested. One officer later commented on the deeply personal nature of the crime, emphasizing the horrific fact that Chris strangled his family one by one, his wife, then his 2 sons. Chris Coleman was convicted of triple murder in 2011 for killing his wife and their 2 sons. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence was upheld after Chris appealed the verdict in 2014. Chris was incarcerated at the Pontiac Correctional Center in Illinois, but he was later moved to Wisconsin for security reasons. The motive for this tragic crime appears to stem from a combination of personal and external pressures. Investigators learned that Sherry had discovered Chris's affair with a woman named Tara, and she had confided this to a friend shortly before her death. It was believed that Chris feared Sherry would not agree to a divorce and was also concerned that his employer, Joyce Meyer Ministries, would dismiss him if the affair came to light. Chris Coleman did not plead guilty to the charges against him. Instead, he maintained his innocence throughout the trial. He is currently serving his sentence at the Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin.
Well, Mandy and Vic, after about 2 hours of testimony, the circuit court judge here today said that the appellate court did an excellent job, but he believes that some evidence may have been overlooked. Now, the judge did not decide to have a new trial, but he wants to have a new evidence hearing. And we can show you video as the convicted killer, Chris Coleman, arrived here in court this afternoon. Chris Coleman was found guilty in 2011 of strangling his wife, 31-year-old Sherry Coleman, and their sons Garrett, age 11, and Galvin, age 9, in their home in Columbia. Coleman was sentenced by a judge to 3 life terms without possibility of parole. Once Coleman entered the courtroom this afternoon, he was wearing a white-colored shirt and black pants with handcuffs and shackles on his feet. He showed no emotions as he looked directly at the judge the majority of the time, and at one point he looked at those attending the hearing, and some of those victim family members tried to hold back the tears. Now, this is video from 2011 when Coleman was found guilty of the murders. And this afternoon, various detectives took to the stand during the evidential hearing. Coleman's attorney argued that the original trial for the 2009 murders compromised Coleman's due process when jurors saw small copies of 4 explicit images of Coleman and his girlfriend on the back of their evidence display. The camera date imprinted on the photos was inconsistent with the date Coleman said he stated the affair. Now, detectives testified today why they censored those photos and mentioned at the time the judge did not want the photos.
The cases of Chris Coleman and Chris Watts bear striking similarities, both centered around husbands who led double lives and ultimately took extreme measures to remove obstacles between them and their affairs. Each was deeply involved with another woman and feared the unraveling of their marriages and the fallout it could cause in both their careers and personal lives. The men also reportedly crafted alibis and deceptive tactics to mislead investigators initially, attempting to portray the tragedies as threats or accidents. Both stories reveal the devastating consequences of deception within family dynamics and have since drawn intense media scrutiny for their disturbing parallels.
There's no words. There's no word. The only thing that I have to say at this point is what Mr. Romanucci said regarding the suit. Okay, me and my family, our goal is to keep my daughter's memory alive, my grandchildren's memories alive, and continue doing things that my daughter has been doing down the road. And if we can save one person from being abused or done what was done to my daughter, that would just make us feel wonderful to be able to do that.
That would be
If you'd like to support my channel, please leave a like or comment. I would be very grateful. Thank you for listening, and until next time.